Week 2 of the fantasy football season. Here's tight end start sits every matchup this week. Commanders at the Packers, Thursday Night Football. Both these tight ends I like in this one. Zach Ertz found the end zone last week. I know he's the number 3 option now in the passing game with Deebo Samuel over there for this Commander team. But like I always say in my videos, a young quarterback security blanket and definitely red zone threat is the tight end. And that's exactly what Zach Ertz has been for this Commander team in Daniels. He's a start. Tucker Kraft to start last week. Not a big game for him, but he did find the end zone. He arguably could be the number 1 option in the passing game as the year goes on for this Green Bay Packer team. He's a big target tight end, good yard after catch guy. And this week in a matchup where it could be a potential high-scoring game, he's a start. New York Giants at the Cowboys. Theo Johnson a sit in this one. Theo Johnson last week dropped a couple passes, and this offense once again doesn't look in sync. Offensive line isn't that good. Russell Wilson, I think his better years are behind him, obviously, and I think this offense should just put Jackson Dart in there at the quarterback where he'll help everyone in the offense, even though it's only week 2. Jake Ferguson, a sit for me in this one. He's the 3rd option in the passing game now, behind CeeDee Lamb, behind George Pickens. They still use Keontae Turpin as well as a gadget guy in short yardage plays. So Ferguson, even with the contract extension in the offseason, I think he's taking a little bit of a back seat now in this offense. He's a sit. Seattle Seahawks at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Elijah Arroyo is sit as the rookie. Arroyo, he didn't do much last week. And this offense with Sam Darnold, pretty much Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp, and Walker and Charbonnet are going to be the guys getting the most action right now for the Seahawks team. So this week with a tough matchup at Pittsburgh and not much going on with Arroyo in the preseason and in week 1. And I know he's a rookie, like I said, he's a sit. Jonnu Smith, fringe option. Last week, 5 catches, 15 yards, and a touchdown for Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, we know he's a good route runner, good hands at the tight end position. But I've said it in other videos, Aaron Rodgers, he just doesn't utilize the tight end position a lot like he used to going way back in his Packer days. So this week, Jonnu Smith, even in a decent matchup, a fringe option. Pat Freiermuth to sit. Right now, looks like Jonnu Smith, he's going to get majority of the snaps over Freiermuth. Even though Freiermuth definitely went out there and made a few plays last week, and this week's a decent matchup, it's just tough to trust a team with 2 tight ends to even start one of them at times. Los Angeles Rams at the Titans. Tyler Higbee, Davis Allen sits. This tight end position in Los Angeles last couple seasons really hasn't done much. I know Davis Allen found the end zone last week, but obviously Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Kyren Williams out of the backfield are going to be the 3 main guys in this offense all season long. So like I said, Davis Allen, it was nice to see him score a touchdown, but he's not a fantasy option. And him and Higbee are sits. Chigga Kwango was sit last week. Pretty much the offense was stagnant, didn't do anything. Very tough matchup it was, obviously, at the Denver Broncos. And Chigga Kwango, a couple years ago, he had a few good games here and there, but of late, he really hasn't done much, and he's not a fantasy option, even with the quarterback Cam Ward in there. Buffalo Bills at the Jets. Dalton Kincaid is a start. Last week, a nice game it was for Kincaid. Set the tone early with a touchdown for the Buffalo Bills. And we know he was a first-round pick a few years ago in the NFL draft by this Bill team. So like I said, Kincaid can run the routes. Good yard after catch guy, big target in the red zone. And as long as he's healthy, he's a starting option pretty much weekly in a Josh Allen offense. Mason Taylor a sit. Last week he didn't do much. He's the rookie Mason Taylor. And this Jet team for many seasons really hasn't utilized the tight end position. And this offense pretty much the only guys you could trust in fantasy football. Obviously Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and Justin Fields. New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. Hunter Henry a start. He's number 2 option arguably in this passing game team. Him and Drake May had good rapport last season. Week 1, they had good rapport as well. And Drake May, I think he could be the future for this Patriot team. Looked good last week in that ball game for the most part, even though it was a tough loss. And they just got to build around him a little more. And Hunter Henry is obviously a good building piece, and a young quarterback security blanket as well is a tight end position. Now to the Dolphins. Darren Waller, he didn't play last week. They got him out of retirement. Traded for him in the offseason, but he's not really a tight end. I think has much left in the tank. His last couple seasons with injuries and with the Giants, he didn't produce, so he's a sit even if he plays. And Tanner Connor, not an option in this offense as well, where this tight end position's 4th or 5th in the pecking order behind Achane, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jacksonville Jaguars. At the Cincinnati Bengals, Brenton Strange is sit. Last week had a decent ball game was Brenton Strange, where him as well, he's the 4th or 5th option in this offense behind Thomas Jr., behind Travis Hunter, behind Travis Etienne in the backfield. And Brenton Strange, he could be a decent tight end, 8-9 fantasy points a week at times in PPR leagues, but consistency isn't going to be there for him. And like I said, this is a deep tight end position as well. Cincinnati, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant sits. Gesicki, he'll have a pop game every once in a while, but it's tough for him as well when you got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins over there, and Chase Brown out of the backfield, so he's a sit. Noah Fant did find the end zone last week, but if he didn't get the touchdown, it was a nothing ball game, obviously, then for Noah Fant. So he's a sit this week. San Francisco 49ers at the New Orleans Saints. Jake Tongs, he's a sit in this one. He had 3 catches, found the end zone late. Was a big play in that one. We know George Kittle now out at least 4 games with a hamstring injury, and injuries have been a problem that have plagued Kittle for a majority of his career. But this week, even in a good matchup, have to see more out of Jake Tongs to put him in the lineup. He's a sit. Juwan Johnson, he's a fringe option. Last week, it was a nice game for him. He got targets, and Spencer Rattler, young quarterback, so he's obviously going to target the tight end position. But we've seen this a lot, obviously, like from Juwan Johnson in his career. He'll have a big game, then people rush to the waiver wire, pick him up, and he don't do much. This week, I'm just going to make him a fringe option. Cleveland Browns at the Ravens. David Njoku, he's a start. Last week, he got outplayed by the rookie Harold Fanning Jr., where Fanning Jr. played 55 snaps and had 7 catches in that one for 63 yards. So like I said, David Njoku is going to be a start for me in this one. It is a contract season. Definitely could see them trade him at the deadline if Harold Fanning keeps it going like he did in week 1. And he was a nice prospect coming out. But this week, Njoku will start. And Harold Fanning, I'm going to pump the brakes. Definitely someone to own in 12-team leagues or deeper. But right now, to me, he's a sit. One more week we have to see. Mark Andrews a start. I'm going to give Andrews another week. Last week, it was a crazy game where he was up and down the field very quickly for both teams, where Andrews, he really didn't get much opportunity in that one. So last season, a lot of people gave up on Andrews, and then second half, he broke out last year and ended up with 11 touchdowns. So this week, in a pretty good matchup versus a division foe, he's very familiar with. He's a start. Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. Colston Loveland is hit for me in this game. Loveland last week, we didn't see much. And this hit Bear offense, they looked out of sync. And Caleb Williams, he wasn't accurate, wasn't hitting his targets, wasn't making quick decisions. And Loveland, I think it's going to take a little bit before he gets going in this offense. Cole Kmet is hit as well last week. That one great one-handed grab in the middle of the field for Cole Kmet. He didn't do anything in that game, and pretty much Caleb Williams was running a whole lot in that game as well. And Roma Dunze and DJ Moore were the 2 guys who did the most in this offense, even though it wasn't much. So they both sit. Sam Laporta started last week, a solid game. It was for Sam Laporta. Besides him, no one did much in this offense for Detroit. But I think this offense bounces back this week with a good matchup. And this Lion offense, they've been better at home for many seasons than they've been on the road. So Laporta, once again, he's a nice start. Denver Broncos at the Indianapolis Colts. Evan Ingram, a fringe option, even if he plays in this game. Evan Ingram's injuries have been a problem for him the last couple seasons, and production has gone way down since the 2023 season as well. So Evan Ingram made a few plays, then he got hurt in the third quarter of that game with the Denver Broncos, and Bo Nix didn't look good as well in that one versus the Titans. So like I said, Evan Ingram, even if he plays, definitely dropping down a little bit for me. Adam Trotman, if he has to start in this one for Ingram, he's a sit. He's been the starter for a couple seasons on and off, never had fantasy value, and that will continue once again. Tyler Warren a start, already looking like one of the better tight ends in fantasy football is Tyler Warren. Daniel Jones winning the training camp battle. Daniel Jones, he's always targeted the tight end position, and it's a better fit for Tyler Warren than it would have been with Anthony Richardson, in my opinion. So this week, even in a tougher matchup, we saw the rookies going to get peppered with targets, had double-digit fantasy points in his first career game, and he's a start this week. Carolina Panthers at the Cardinals. Jatavian Sanders definitely has upside and could be a guy in the future that could be good. He hasn't had many big games at all in his career, and this offense definitely needs a second guy to step up in the receiving game besides Tatora McMillan, but Jatavian Sanders really hasn't done much. He's a sit. Trey McBride, he's a lock start each and every week. Last week, I know it wasn't a great game, 5 catches, 57 yards for Trey McBride, but this week, home opener, this offense has been better at home than it's been on the road over the last couple seasons, and he's still the number 1 option in this offense over Marvin Harrison. So Trey McBride, he was a top 2 tight end off the board in fantasy leagues and locked in a start once again. Philadelphia Eagles at the Chiefs Super Bowl rematch. Dallas Goedert last week, he was the best option in the passing game for Philadelphia. He outdid A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert and Hurts. They have a good rapport. Goddard still could run the routes, good yard after catch tight end. And this week versus at Kansas City in the Super Bowl rematch at Arrowhead on key third downs, I think Goddard's going to make plays and possibly find the end zone as well. Travis Kelce a start. I know last week if he didn't have that long touchdown, it was a nothing ball game for Kelce. And even if Xavier Worthy does play in this game with the dislocated shoulder, I think Kelce they're going to count on more. And Kelce also as well, he's been a player the last couple of seasons, obviously in the latter part of his career, and up there in age where he's been a better home player than he's been on the road. So this week, juices are going to be flowing. It's a revenge game, obviously, for the Chiefs. He's a tight end. I would start this week. Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings. Kyle Pitts, he's a sit for me in this one. I know Kyle Pitts, he went out there. He had a good game last week in the season opener. But Kyle Pitts, it's the same story every year. He has a couple good games here and there, and he doesn't do much for weeks as Kyle Pitts. So this week, where arguably he could be a top target if Drake London and Darnell Mooney are out in this one. Still, I don't have confidence in Kyle Pitts. He's a sit in this one. DJ Hawkinson a start. I know last week was a bad game for Hawkinson. Only 3 catches, 15 yards in that one. But Hawkinson, in my opinion, is still one of the better tight ends in the league. As a whole, the offense didn't do anything in the first half. Then second half, J.J. McCarthy woke up, got things going for this Minnesota Viking team. And Hawkinson, he's going to be a big part of this offense. A young quarterback, security blanket, and always relies on the tight end in big situations on third downs or even big parts of the game. So this week, home opener for this Viking team, indoor game, I think Hawkinson bounces back. He's a start in the final 2 games of the week, both Monday night. Doubleheader this week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Houston Texans. Cade Otton is hit. He's the 4th or 5th option in this offense. We saw Otton last season have a couple of good games. But that was with both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out of the lineup. So this week where, like I said, Evans, Abuka, Bucky Irving all healthy, ready to go. He's a sit. Dalton Schultz a sit. As the year goes on, he could be an option. Once again, is Schultz in this offense. But last week, with Nico Collins getting shut down and not doing much, Schultz had a couple opportunities. He didn't do much. And Vince, I don't think he's really going to do much this season here until possibly Joe Mixon comes back, if he even does it all, because this running game, I don't think it's going to be really existent for this Texan team. And teams are going to double team Nico Collins and try to make other players beat him. So I think Schultz, possibly as the year goes on, could be an option, but he's a sit this week. In the final game of the week, Chargers at the Raiders, Tyler Conklin a sit. He's 4th, 5th option in this offense behind Ladd McConkey, behind Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, Hampton out of the backfield. Conklin had a nice play last week. But Justin Herbert, he has all these other guys in the offense that are going to be priority and get open. So Conklin this week, he's a sit. And Brock Bowers, obviously must start, best tight end in fantasy football. But right now, he's day-to-day with a knee injury, is Brock Bowers. Hopefully he could play in this game. But if he don't, it'll only be a week or 2 maybe if he's not playing his Bowers. But obviously, you load him you get him in that lineup each and every week. He's a must start. And Michael Mayer, draft pick a few years ago from this Raider team, but once, obviously, last season in the NFL draft, they saw they had an opportunity to go out there and Brock Bowers. Mayer took a back seat, and he's the backup tight end. But last week, he made a few plays, especially when Bowers went out. And we know Geno Smith likes spreading that football out, and a lot of guys get opportunities. But even if Bowers is out, Michael is a sit for me. So that's tight end start, sit every matchup for week 2 of the fantasy football season.